Hi, I'm Andrea. Thank you for joining me for this 30-minute yoga practice. A few things that are helpful. I do have a yoga mat. If you don't happen to, no worries. A place in your house that's carpeted is great. Maybe you've got a rug that can serve as your yoga mat for today. Also, a couple of blocks. Thick books will do the trick, and for some of what we do, you might even use the arm of your couch or the seat of a chair, because it's not about trying to get close to the floor, it's about how can we create space, and that's what our props do. A folded blanket could be as simple as the throw blanket from your couch, or maybe you've got a beach towel that you can fold up. And once we've got those things, we'll start in the bedrock of all poses, our mountain pose. Standing and facing what would be the short edge of your mat, if you have one. Feet hip distance, soft bend in your knees. Turn your palms away from each other. Let that originate at your shoulder joint, so we're not just slumped. We're tall and majestic, like a mountain. And it's here that we stop, so that we can start. Bring your awareness to your breath. If possible, the inhale and the exhale through your nose. If not, any way that you can breathe. But be very present to it. I'm breathing in, and I'm breathing out. Stay with that presence and that breath. Let's add movement to it. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips. Hands can come to your thighs for this first one, so that we remember it's a hinge at our hips, but elongation through our spine when we fold. Inhale, uplift your heart even more. Exhale, increase the hinge at your hips, but keep that beautiful spinal length. And then inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Stand in your mountain, palms face out. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V. Exhale, hinge at your hips and take your hands to your thighs. Maybe slide them to your shins or your ankles. I slide my hands up my shins to uplift my heart and get more length in my spine. Exhale, fold in, but keep that length to your spine. And then inhale, rise, reach thumbs to the sky, V shape. Stand, palms face out. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs, your shins, your ankles, it's up to you. Inhale, uplift your heart. This time, bend your knees deeply, plant your hands flat on the ground, step back to a down dog, and let's really pay attention to how we line up our down dog. Let's step our feet as wide as our mat for this first one and add a ton of bend to our knees. Imagine a hook in your tailbone and it's pulling your hips away from your hands. We're not collapsed with our elbows bending out to the side. You want to feel almost like you're spinning two jars away from each other with your hands, and feel the inner upper arms spin like they could out in front of you. Our priority is a long spine. It's never to try to get our heels down, but if for some reason in your body, sinking your heels and starting to straighten your legs ever feels okay, that's terrific. Walk forward slowly, bring your feet to your hands. Hip distance is a good stance. Inhale, hands to your ankles, your shins, your thighs as we uplift our heart. Exhale, hinge at your hips, slide your hands down, and then inhale, rise, reach thumbs to the sky, a V. Pause. Make sure there's no dizziness from that little upside down of down dog. Adding another friend to our sun salutation. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins, or ankles. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, fold a little deeper, but keep that length, and then bend your knees, hands flat. Slowly, carefully, we step to our down dog. You can keep that wide stance and bend to your knees high on your toes. Maybe your feet go hip distance. Shift towards a plank. shoulders over wrists. Now you can bring your knees down and be on hands and knees instead, or a modified plank, which is just your knees underneath where they would be in a plank, so a little further back than hands and knees. Let's be mindful that we don't collapse in between our shoulder blades, so push the ground away, fill out that area between your shoulder blades, and then keep pushing until we come back to our down dog. Very long spine, tailbone lifting. Walk your feet forward to your hands. Inhale, hands to ankles, shins, thighs. We inhale and lift our heart, and then we exhale and fold in with that long spine. Rise, reach. Inhaling, thumbs to the sky, and then we stand and pause in our mountain. Inhale, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins, or ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart. Fold in, but keep the length, and then bend your knees. Plant your hands, step back to downward facing dog with a very long spine. Shift towards a plank. You could be on hands and knees. All of us will modify our plank, bringing our knees down, right underneath where our knees were in plank. We don't collapse here. We shift a little forward with a firm belly. Elbows brush your ribs all the way down onto your belly. Sphinx pose, forearms parallel to the long edges of your mat. Uncurl your toes. Traction your elbows towards you. Press into the tops of your feet until you feel your legs activated. We're not trying to overdo things in our neck or our low back here. We want to create a very long, strong back bend. You might slide your hands back as you lower down and make it a cobra, but it still feels like Sphinx, long and strong, and you can do Sphinx the whole time if you prefer. Lower down, curl your toes under, come through hands and knees, and then to our long spine down dog. And we'll walk forward, feet to our hands. Inhale, hands to ankles, shins or thighs. Exhale, hinge at your hips and fold. Rise, reach, thumbs to the sky, and then stand and pause in your mountain. One round flowing that sun salutation. Inhale, arms out and up. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins, ankles. Inhale, lift your heart. Bend your knees deeply as we fold in and step back into our down dog. Then shift to your plank. Oomph into your arms, knees down carefully, belly firm, lower to your belly. Either Sphinx pose or cobra with your hands next to your ribs and you're on the tops of your feet. Then recurl your toes under, come through all fours and into our downward facing dog. Now from downward facing dog, shift towards a plank. A couple of ways that we can do side plank. Come to the outside of your right foot and the inside of your left foot and take your left arm up to the sky. If that feels like a little bit too much, bring your right knee down onto the ground. So I will turn sideways so that you can see what that looks like. So you can always bring your right knee down onto the ground, or you are scissored with your feet and you're on the outside of your right foot, inside of your left foot. And then from here, carefully back to our down dog. So spin on your toes towards plank and then down dog. And let's take a moment with our knees down on our mat in a child's pose where we can take the backs of our hands together and let our wrists release. So just a little bit of a humble bow here in our child's pose and letting our wrists release. That's hard to say. Come to all fours, head back to downward facing dog. Remember, very long spine as we're here. And then carefully to the outside of your left foot, inside of your right foot, and your right arm goes up to the sky. Now remember, you can carefully set your left knee down on the ground and your right foot will stay where it is, and that's a great variation of this if you prefer it. Maybe you play with the two options and spend time in each one of them. And now spin on your back, on your toes, all of your toes. Right hand down, down dog. We will walk forward, feet to our hands. Inhale, hands to ankles, shins, or thighs. Exhale, fold back in. Rise, reach, thumbs to the sky, a V. Stand in your mountain. Pause for a moment. When we do a side plank, we use our side waist muscles, the obliques. We're going to use those same muscles in the next series of postures that we do. I will recommend that you take your 2 tall blocks or books on either side of your mat, so we never want to set up our props right underfoot, but we want them to be within reach when we need them. And then inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, V. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs or shins or ankles. Inhale, lengthen even more through your spine. Exhale, hinge at your hips and fold. Bend your knees, hands flat, downward facing dog. From our down dog, lift your right leg behind you, step it forward. It's likely you have to help it along, no worries. Let your right foot go a little bit to the left and turn your back foot flat on its side. Take your right forearm across your thigh and your left hand onto your hip. So we now have a side angle. You've got a nice deep bend in your right knee, and you make sure that as you're doing your side angle, you don't have your knee forward of your ankle. So you can just take a peek, make sure that you've got a vertical line there. And now those obliques we were talking about are turning our ribs towards the sky, our right ribs towards the sky, left arm up to the sky. For most of us, this forearm across the thigh is the perfect option. You might take your right hand onto your tall block on the outside of your right foot and your left arm up to the sky. That was tippy, just FYI. 2 moments here. Very long bottom ribs, and then they rotate skyward. No sign of shoulders shrugging into ears, so much space. To exit, we want to be mindful. So if your forearm is across your thigh, you might bring that book into the mix. We'll spin on our left toes and take our hands flat on the ground. So you can use your props as part of that transition. And then step into downward facing dog. You can stay in down dog. You can bring your knees to your mat and decide that you want to do a child's pose. You might even do child's pose and release your wrists, since we didn't do that after the second side of our side plank. And then some of you will decide to come to plank from your down dog. Bring your knees to your mat, firm your belly, lower slowly all the way down. Uncurl your toes for either cobra or Sphinx pose. Remember, long, strong press into the tops of your feet. Lower down and curl your toes under to come through all 4s. And then we meet our friends who are waiting for us in down dog or child's pose. Left leg lifts behind you. Step it forward. Feel free to help it along. Turn your right foot, your back foot, flat on its side, and heel toe this left foot a little bit over towards the right. Take your left forearm across your thigh and your right hand on your right hip, and traction with your forearm to turn those ribs to the sky. If for some reason it feels like you might want to use your tall block on the outside of your left thigh with your left hand on it, great. But remember, it's not that we're trying to get close to the ground, we're trying to create space. Right thumb to the sky, right arm to the sky, left hip hugging underneath us. Every inhale grows us longer through the spine, and every exhale we use those obliques, our core strength, to turn our ribs to the sky. 3 silent moments together in this posture. I highly recommend bringing a block into the picture, but it's important to spin on your back toes, plant your hands flat on the ground, step into down dog. From down dog with a long spine, walk forward, feet to our hands. Inhale, hands onto ankles, shins, thighs as we uplift our heart, and then exhale. Increase the hinge at your hips and lengthen as you fold. Rise, reach, inhale, thumbs to the sky, a V, and then we stand and let that bit digest. Inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky, a V. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs, maybe to your shins, maybe to your ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart. And then bend your knees deeply, palms flat, step to down dog. From down dog, lift your right leg and step that right foot forward. Again, feel free to help it along. We'd like to have a vertical line from our knee to our ankle. Bring your blocks to either side of your right foot. Remember, we're looking to be tall in the saddle. We don't want to swing our right hip out to the side. See if you can draw that right hip back and left hip forward. Trunk stability can be found even here in this lunge, and here's how we're going to find it. Get lighter with your hands on your blocks. You might even take your arms alongside your body. You're hovering your chest above that right thigh, sometimes interlacing and drawing those knuckles back behind you feels like a good move. You can always return your hands to your blocks if it feels like it's a bit more than you bargained for. Let's stay for 3 moments and just feel that our trunk has to be solid or else the whole thing collapses, which is not what we're after. Move your blocks off to the side, palms flat, step to your down dog, long spine, tailbone to the sky. Either stay here or bring your knees to your mat for child's pose, or join me as we shift to plank. Knees down, firm through your belly as you come all the way down. Uncurl your toes for either Sphinx or for Cobra. And then lower down, curl your toes under, come through all 4s. And then to down dog. You can always take a child's pose. That's forever on the menu should you want it. Left leg reaches, step it forward, help it along in any way that might be useful. Bring your blocks into the mix on either side of your left foot. Let's first find our foundation, so we're not letting that left hip swing out to the side. We're drawing our left hip back and our right hip forward, and then we find that prioritizing of a very long spine and a firm low belly lifting, and we play with it. Hands can get a little lighter on your blocks. You might even take your arms alongside you. Trunk stability, super important. You could interlace your hands behind your back if that feels like the best option. Let's take 3 moments together. I know it's an intense place to be. Remember, you can take your hands back to your blocks if you want. And then take your hands onto your blocks. Move those blocks mindfully off your mat. Bend your knee as deeply as you need to come into a solid hand position for our downward facing dog. And then walk your feet forward to your hands. Inhale, hands to ankles, shins, maybe thighs. Exhale, lengthen as you fold. And then inhale, rise, reach thumbs to the sky, a V, stand, pause in your mountain. Now we take our blocks and move them a foot out in front of our mat. And then standing in our mountain, inhale, arms out and up, thumbs to the sky. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs or shins or ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart, and then take your hands onto your blocks. This is where I think if you use the arm of your sofa or the seat of a chair, that's great too. Stand on your right leg, extend your left leg back behind you, really strong through our core. And we're simply experimenting with our hands a little lighter on our blocks or the seat of our chair or the arm of your sofa. Maybe a prayer underneath your heart, and that could be short-lived as we just try to find that stability. We're breathing the whole time. Return your hands to whatever you're using, arm of your sofa, blocks, step your left foot hip distance. Bring your hands onto your thighs, lift your heart, inhaling. Exhale, fold in, and then rise and reach. And let's stand for a moment in our mountain. Second side of that. Inhale, arms out and up. hinge at your hips, fold hands to thighs or shins or ankles, and then as we uplift our heart, this is the architecture for our what's called Warrior 3. Hands onto your block, seat of your chair or arm of your sofa, stand on your left leg, extend your right leg back behind you, pause a second, get your bearings, a little bend in your left leg, your load-bearing leg is a good idea. Play with the possibility of getting light on your hands, maybe even a prayer for a moment, maybe a prayer for a while. 3 experimental moments here in our balance with trunk stability. And then hands onto your blocks, the seat of your chair, right foot hip distance from left. Let's just take our hands to our thighs and inhale, lift our heart. Exhale, hinge at your hips, rise, reach, inhaling, thumbs to the sky, and then pause in your mountain. Scoot your blocks off to either side so they don't get in our way, and then inhale, arms reach. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to thighs, shins, or ankles. Inhale, uplift your heart, and as we fold in, palms flat, we step to our down dog. And from down dog, we'll come to hands and knees. And it might be, because we're going to be on our hands and knees for a moment, that you take your folded towel or blanket and put it underneath your knees for this next part. On our hands and knees with our shoulders over our wrists, extend your left leg back behind you off the ground, much like we did just a moment ago standing, but now on our hands and knees. It's not doggy in the fire hydrant. We're not turning that out. We want all our toes to face the ground. And then as if to shake hands, right arm reaches out in front of you, and it's pulling away from your left leg. We're not collapsed into our left shoulder. We want to oomph into that left arm. Feel our low belly lifting. And then carefully bring your right elbow and your left knee as if they were going to touch beneath you, and reach the 2 away. Keep oomping into your left arm. Bring those 2 together and reach those 2 apart. Let's do that one more time. Elbow and knee together. The 2 reach apart. We get longer and stronger. And then right hand down and left knee down. Sit back, take that little release of our wrists. Onto all fours again for the second side of what's called a spinal balance. This time, right leg extends behind you and left arm extends. I have my left toes curled under. You could do it either way. But do press into your right hand so we don't have any of that sagging or dropping. This is like the hover of our chest over our thigh in our lunge, if you think about it. Or that letter T that we just did. Bring together carefully left elbow and right knee, and then bring them apart. They don't have to touch, but they'd like to. That's what they're thinking of. Bring your left elbow and your right knee towards each other, and then reach those 2 apart. And we do that one more time. When we reach the 2 apart, let's oomph into our right arm and really get some space. 2 moments here. And then to all fours and onto our knees to press the backs of our hands together and release our wrists. Then back to downward facing dog. If you've got a towel underneath your knees, you might want to brush that off to the side and get it out of your way. From down dog with our long spine, let's take one more moment to really feel the hook in our tailbone, making us tall. And then lift your right leg, step your right foot forward, help it along a little bit, bring your left knee on your mat. I like to use a book or block underneath my right hip. Step your right foot carefully over to the left, and you will sit into what's called single pigeon. So a block underneath your right sit bone, And then you're trying to convince your left hip to move forward. So although I'm sitting pretty open to the side here, what we really want to try to find is, and you can bend your right knee as deeply as you need to, but that you are positioned so that your hip bones are facing that short edge of your mat. Not for every body does this feel great on a right knee. So instead, if this just feels like, I can't figure it out, it's not working for me, no worries. What you'll do instead is lie on your back and do a figure 4, cross your right ankle on top of your left thigh and reach through the space, or just simply leave it as this. That might be plenty. And you can always put a block or folded blanket underneath your head. So some of us are doing single pigeon and some of us are doing what's called reclining pigeon. In our single pigeon, although sometimes we kind of collapse forward, I'm going to suggest that we actually sit quite tall, unless that bothers your lower back. I like to take a tall block out in front of me. And again, it feels a bit like when we do Sphinx pose, we're asking our spine to grow tall and long. A couple of moments of silence together here in this stretch. Now slowly dismount, down dog for those of us in pigeon, or in the single pigeon. If you're in reclining pigeon, just stay lying on your back and you'll switch sides from there. Left leg lifts if you're doing the single pigeon. Step your left foot forward, lower your right knee. Walk that left foot over towards the right a little bit. Situate your block underneath your left sit bone, and I then take my tall block out in front of me. You might join me with that. Curl your right toes under and gently convince your hips to face that short edge of your mat. If you're in reclining pigeon, you now have your left ankle on top of your right thigh. And I'm going to give you quite a bit of silence here for the second side of our stretch. If you are in the single pigeon that I'm doing right now, I'll show you how we will make our way to our Shavasana final meditation. If you're in reclining pigeon, you're lying on your back, so I think you can probably figure it out. But we will carefully dismount our block, slide our left knee next to our right, take the blocks off to the side out of our way, and then lie down on our backs. Once we're lying down, it's all about giving over, finding surrender. You can cover yourself, cover your eyes. Let's though feel our shoulder blades underneath us on the ground, and then give over. Let ourselves completely let go. encourage you to stay here in our Shavasana final meditation as long as you would like. If you're ready, reach your arms and legs away from each other. Gather your knees into your chest and roll carefully to either side. Let your head be the very last thing to come up to a comfortable way to sit, and that can be any way that's comfortable, including sitting in a chair. Then with our palms up or down, we take a moment. We feel to our core that we are grateful for this yoga. I'm Andrea. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I look forward to us doing